Welcome, everybody. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we publish world-changing wellness books. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This interview is part of a powerful series to celebrate Brave Kids Books, which is a new imprint from Brave Healer Productions. I'm so excited to share with you guys. The mission is to share brave words with kids all over the world so they can learn about all of the magic life has to offer. And here to talk about her book, The Changing Story, is Dr. Ahriana Platten. Welcome, Ahriana.
Very nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Laura.
So you guys, Ahriana is the founder of Opus Life Design, where she helps people master the art of living an authentic, purpose-driven, passionate life. She's often referred to as a wisdom keeper, a practical mystic, and leading edge coach for visionaries, thought leaders, and entrepreneurs. She believes there is nothing more important than creating a meaningful life and having real impact on the world, and she loves to provide tips and tools for discovering your sacred calling. So you're going to be able to find her on her website, ahriana.com. That's down in the show notes, you guys, for later. Ahriana, I want you to tell me the story of this beautiful book and how the idea came about and all of that good stuff. Let's start that way.
Yeah, so this story was given to me by a river. I was in Salida, Colorado. I know that's outside the way stories normally come to be, but I was meditating at the side of the Colorado River in Salida, Colorado. Sorry, Arkansas River, the Arkansas River. And I had my eyes closed and I was relaxed and just in a very tranquil state. And I began to hear the story and it just unfolded for me. So I quick ran back to the hotel room that I was staying in and wrote it down and then held the story waiting for the right illustrator. And I ended up holding the story for 13 years before the right illustrator came along. So,
oh my goodness. Did you know that it was a children's book right away when it came through?
I didn't know what it was going to be. In fact, before I even went to illustrating, I at one point thought about creating a video and went and shot a bunch of video footage for it. And I did it once as a reader's theater piece. And I did lots of things with it before it really kind of told me what it wanted to be. And I felt very committed to doing something because it's not new for me to hear voices in nature. I've heard voices in nature my whole life. But this was a complete story. It was very different than the kind of communication that I normally get. And I felt very obligated, like this was gifted to me to take out into the world. And so the timing was very interesting to me because I published this book during COVID, during the lockdown, actually. And this book is really about change. And I can't think of another time in my life where there was more change occurring than during the pandemic.
You ain't kidding. Oh my goodness. And you know what? You waited for your beautiful illustrator for a reason. Y'all, I'm not going to share more than this one page because I want you guys to be surprised by the rest of the illustrations. But this is one of my favorite because the big birds are one of my signs. I've got a little feather on my forearm to prove it. And the illustrations are gorgeous. So tell me about your illustrator.
Her name is April Lavallee Robinson, and she is an amazing woman who I found because she was sitting in, I'm a minister, and I was doing a Sunday service, and I was working through the service, and at the end of the service, she sent me a picture she had drawn of me, a cartoon character, and just with a really sweet note. And I looked at it and I knew in every cell of my body, this was the illustrator that I'd been waiting for. This was her first book too. It was for both of us, the first book. And I feel like she sucked the images out of my head. She just knew. Every time I got a sample, I was shocked at how much what I was envisioning in my head was on the paper.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. And really the timing, I'm just going back to what you said about publishing in this past year, when pretty much everyone on the planet was going through some kind of change for so many different kinds of reasons. We had to embrace this topic. And I truly enjoyed reading through. It's been a while since I picked up kids' books. My little guy and gal aren't so little anymore. They're adults. But what I remembered from reading your story was how much I love reading these stories. And so you wrote this for me too.
I did. I wrote it really, there was an opportunity for me to simplify the language, and I chose not to do that. And I chose not to do that because I'm the parent of 4 boys. All of mine are grown. Mine are between college age and 40. And I wrote it with lots of experience as a reading parent, and really understanding that the interaction between parent and child is really important in making the book fun. So I left the words that parents could explain, and I left the words that children could hear for the first time. And there's a ton of symbology in this book, so that if you want to, if this becomes a family favorite, and I hope it will, there is a whole glossary of symbols in the back, so that you can look at each page and go a little deeper in this story each time you read it, and point out new things that your child, or I want to say also grandchild, because I'm now reading this to my granddaughter. So this book has lots of ways to interact in a new way as the reader each time, and the message is really important, because it doesn't matter if you're 2 or you're 12 or you're 22 or you're 72, you are going through change in your life. Some of the changes we hit in the later years of our life are really challenging. And as a grandparent, being reminded that change can be a really positive and powerful thing it's good for me too when I read it.
Yes, and to stay in the flow like the river.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is so perfect. So watching my own 2 kids grow up, I always worried about doing everything right and saying the right thing and acting in the right ways. And I think actually that great parents have a certain amount of this kind of awareness. No matter how they were brought up, great parents are practicing this, right? So how else do you think we can be better parents?
It shocks me to say I've been parenting for 40 years. It just shocks me that 40 years of my life has been involved in parenting. The thing that I have learned that I think is probably most important is that children feel love. Children know love. They recognize love. When they cross the veil and come into this world, they are the emanation of love. Nobody picks up a baby and goes, oh, this is a bad apple. It doesn't agree. We pick up our babies and they just glow love from their eyes, from their skin, from that sweet smell they make, all of that stuff. And that being who they are.
That sweet smell, I have to pause you. Yes, what is that you just made me totally laugh about that. And it takes so much out of a mom and parents to take care of this little baby. My joke with my mom, she would always tell me, if you weren't so cute, I might have strangled you. But it's the smell too, I'm realizing.
Yeah. Just a quick side story. I had a friend watch my son when he was about 4 months old, and she gave him a bath because he needed a diaper change, and she gave him a bath, and she put on, I didn't use lots of lotions and stuff on my baby, and she put on this new smell, and I had to take him home and wash him because he didn't smell like himself. There are ways that we bond with our children that are beyond our thoughts and beyond marketing, right? That are really, they're just what happens. And children are love. They come in as the deepest, most profound expression of love I have ever had in my entire life. And that's what they're looking for. That's what they're familiar with. That's where their soul came from. Their soul came from love. And so making sure that your children know how much you love them is, in my opinion, the most important thing you can do. To show them, to hold them, to touch them, to call them close, even when they're big. My 17, he's 18 now. will, if I'm sitting on my bed reading, he'll come crawl up next to me, hey, mom, what are you doing? And, all I can think is there isn't a moment in this kid's life that he's felt like I would reject him for loving me or for wanting to be loved, for wanting to feel love. So really, I think you can make lots of mistakes. I have certainly made lots of them. There are lots of times I've gone back and said, you know what, honey, that wasn't the best way. I wish I had handled that different. And I love you too much not to let you know that. Let's work on this together. And that I think is what, if I could be like, is it J.F. Hutton, where the whole world stops? if I could have the whole world stop and listen to me for 1 minute, I would say, make sure your children know they're loved.
Yes. You said, you talked about the mistakes. And this is, again, it's so perfect because I wanted to ask you about that. One of the biggest aha moments on my healing journey was the realization that my parents were always doing the best they could with what they had, with the info they had at the time and the upbringing that they had, right? And it took me a while to get to the love and forgiveness stage as an adult. But when you know better, you do better. So I try to move into my own parenting and actually all relationships with as much of that kind of knowing and awareness as I can, So does that resonate with you? How did that play out on your own journey?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had 4 kids. Everyone was different. I expected that I could learn with the oldest and it would be translatable in each next iteration. This is not the case. Even when you've raised a child and, there's a point in between my 4 where there's a 20-year gap. There's a big, like 20 years. I went from these kids are out of the house to new kids in the house.
Wow.
And I had them. So it wasn't like I inherited them. I had them. And that, I really thought that from one child to the next, what I had learned would really make a difference. What I learned was every single child is different and every little soul comes here needing something different. And if you lock yourself into the idea that you know how to do this parenting thing, you may cheat yourself from learning a lot from your child. And I would say that too. I would say that my children, through my willingness to acknowledge mistakes and to learn, that my children have been my most brilliant teachers. They've made me look at who I am, how I really feel about things, what is really important to me, what I feel is important about the world, and what I wanted them to take out into it. And all of that happened by being willing to be imperfect as a parent.
Oh my gosh, yes. I think one of the marks of a great parent and also a wonderful person, a good person, is the beginner's mind. It's an awareness, and always in martial arts journey that I've taken, that's what that's about too. No matter what rank you achieve, no matter what age you are, no matter what you've been through, you're always thinking about what you could still learn, what's possible to still learn that could change everything. And I, like you, really look at both of my kids have looked at them as teachers throughout the journey. What an amazing gift that I could really understand that at an early time. And I think sometimes on the journey, we learn these things later. It doesn't matter. It's all divine timing.
Yeah, I agree with you. There are things I know now that as a grandparent that I absolutely did not know as a 19-year-old mom. So, what you said earlier about as a parent, you do the best you can with what you have at the time. And you remember that as you move through, rather than looking back and saying, oh, well, I wasn't the parent at 20 that I was at 30 or that I was at 40.
Oh my gosh.
Instead of looking back regretfully at that, acknowledge the gift of learning that has happened for you, how much more you know. And there's a reason that grandparents are valuable in our society, because grandparents really do have a plethora of experience to bring forward with children. Most grandparents, many grandparents, let's say many, because it's not always true. And I want to acknowledge for anybody that's that is saying, oh, not in my household. Yes, I get that. I really get that. It's not always true. And in good cases, grandparents have a different kind of patience and a different relationship with children because of all the experience, because of having made lots of mistakes of their own earlier on.
I'm so happy that you mentioned grandparents. Mom, if you're listening, I know that you have been such a wonderful grandma to the kids. Thank you for that. Yeah, and we need to express that gratitude and appreciation way more, I think, than we do. We're so caught up a lot of the times in our own parenting and life and all the things that we're doing, right? It really takes the village. I know that might sound corny, but it does. That is true. So, listeners, The Changing Story is such a beautiful book. I hope that you'll drop down into our show notes and find out more about it. The Ahriana's website is there. The Amazon link to the book is there. This is going to make an incredible gift to your friends and family. Sometimes I look at kids' books and I think, oh, well, I don't know any young kids anymore, right? I'm not in that stage, don't have grandkids yet type of thing. But my neighbors come to mind, their kids come to mind. Like, there's always gifting opportunities. And I love giving beautiful books like this away to, as gifts. So Ahriana, what's a final word you'd like to share with everyone? Maybe talking about this general message of change, or what's on your heart?
This story really is designed to help people of any age understand that change is about releasing old ideas about who you are, mostly releasing ideas that say you can't do this, I can't do this, I'm not that person, this is beyond the scope of what's possible for me. Oh my gosh, I don't know how, I'm moving, I don't know how to make friends. Whatever it is the story that you're telling yourself about who you are. This story is an invitation to let go of who you think you are so that you can become even more of who you really are. And that journey is a journey for people of all ages. I hope that you will share it, and I hope it brings you joy.
Thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing in the world. And thanks for being here to share it with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
So you guys, please explore those show notes, find all the links, okay? Maybe you know a kid or a parent or a grandparent who needs a Brave Kids book. This is one of them. We can't wait to share it with the world and to chat about your Brave Kids book idea. Please visit us and schedule a chat with the publishing team at bravehealer.com. I can't wait to talk to you about this book that you want to birth into the world. And lastly, today, everybody, remember, you were born so you're worthy. Your message matters, and you'll change the world when you're brave enough to share it. See you next time, everybody. Thank you, Ahriana.